Well, we appreciate you letting us go through your house.
No problem. I'm
Definitely not in there.
No. Hey, hold on one second. Call you back. Bye-bye.
Was it in the car? So she came out the door then?
Yeah. Chris, I think, what's your name again?
I'm Sergeant Bakes.
Sergeant Bakes.
Good to meet you.
So she doesn't have any family or anyone around here?
Neither of us do. They're all back in North Carolina. We moved here back in 2012. Came out here to visit some friends during Thanksgiving, fell in love with the place, moved out here a few months later.
Does she have any friends around here?
Just for friends?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got friends in Frederick, Erie, Aurora, that part of Erie, Broomfield, Parker.
Have you tried to contact any of them?
Oh yeah, we've exhausted every option. The last thing I'm going to do is hospitals. Hotels. There's so many, but...
And no one's heard from her today? Have you checked your bank accounts?
That's another thing I was going to do, because I don't have access through here.
Let's go check those and see if she pulled any cash out or if there's any strange charges or anything.
Okay.
Can you log?
I can't log in because she does all the finances.
Okay.
So I know her password. I just don't have her user ID. Not sure what she would have used that way. Sorry, my phone's just blowing up there.
No, you're fine. Who do you guys bank through?
USAA and Chase.
Can you call them and see if
Yep.
there's been any activity? Any withdrawals or anything? And then the suitcases that she came home this morning with, which ones were those? Was it
The black one that's sitting right there.
Not the one in the bedroom?
Mm-mm. That was from the last trip, when we just got back a few days ago from North Carolina. She went to Arizona like 2 days later. That was when we just got put back down in the basement.
You guys don't have any stockpiles of cash or anything in the house that she would have had? If she needed cash, she needed to go to the bank to get it?
If there is, I would not know about it. If there was, I didn't know.
You know how much cash she usually carries with her?
It's usually not, maybe like 100.
In 2018, Chris Watts murdered his wife and children to start a new life with a woman he had been having an affair with. While Chris Watts received a life sentence, his affair partner Nichol Kessinger changed her name and moved to avoid media and public attention. Nichol has always claimed not knowing about Chris's plan to murder his family, but there are key pieces of evidence that could point to her knowing more than she has admitted. Did she know Chris was going to murder his family? Was she at his house on the morning of the murders? Has she been lying this whole time? Here is a brief rundown of the case. If you already know the details, feel free to skip ahead. And if you enjoy this video, then please consider subscribing. The Chris Watts case is a chilling and tragic story that captured national attention due to the horrific nature of the crimes and the shocking betrayal involved. Chris Watts, a seemingly devoted husband and father, brutally murdered his pregnant wife Shanaan Watts and their 2 young daughters, Bella and Celeste. In August 2018, the case unraveled in a way that exposed the dark reality behind what appeared to be a perfect family. Chris Watts was born in 1985 and worked as an operator for Anadarko Petroleum, an oil and gas company in Colorado. He was known as a quiet, reserved man, while his wife Shanaan was outgoing and active on social media. Shanaan, born in 1984, was a marketing representative for a multi-level marketing company called Thrive. It sold nutrition and weight loss products. Shanaan often shared her life, family, and work online, painting a picture of a happy and thriving family. Together they had 2 daughters, Bella, born in 2013, and Celeste, whom they called Cece, born in 2015. Shanaan was also 15 weeks pregnant with a son, whom they planned to name Nico. Despite the seemingly idyllic image they presented, the Watts marriage was under severe strain by the summer of 2018. Chris was having an affair with a co-worker, Nichol Kessinger, and the family was struggling with financial difficulties, including significant debt. In fact, the couple had previously filed for bankruptcy just 3 years earlier. These issues were brewing beneath the surface, and some say Chris's resentment towards Shanaan's spending was a significant factor in his choice to murder her. On August 13, 2018, Shanaan returned home from a business trip in Arizona at 1:48 a.m. She was dropped off by her friend Nicole Atkinson, who became concerned when Shanaan missed a scheduled doctor's appointment later that morning and did not respond to calls or texts. Sensing something was wrong, Nicole contacted Chris, who claimed that Shanaan and the girls were at a playdate. However, this explanation did not ease Nicole's worries, and she eventually called the police.
She's on the counter right here.
Okay. So when you guys come home, do you usually use the front door, the garage door? How do you guys?
I usually open the garage door, come in.
Okay.
She's around our garage, it's kind of thin.
Okay. Is that a ring out there?
Oh, that was...
No, the doorbell, is that a ring?
Yeah, like when you got a visitor, it does, but I don't think the speaker is on to where you hear it, like if I...
Okay, I guess my question for you is, would it show her leaving with the kids? Did you have any alerts?
If she came out here, yeah.
Did you have any alerts today with that?
Just when her friends were here.
Does it only record when the doorbell rings, or anytime someone...
If you're right here, it should just start, the proximity should hit up.
Okay, and if you had anything on that today?
Just her friends.
When officers conducted a welfare check at the Watts home, they found no sign of Shanaan or the children. Chris exhibited odd behavior, with his neighbor telling the police officer that he wasn't acting right. Shanaan's car, purse, wedding ring, phone were still in the house, which heightened concerns. Chris allowed the police to search the house but claimed ignorance about his family's whereabouts. His calm and flat demeanor seemed odd given the circumstances, and suspicion soon began to mount. As the investigation intensified, Chris Watts made a public plea on local news, asking for the safe return of his wife and daughters. However, his lack of emotion and strange behavior during these interviews only fueled suspicion. On August 15, 2018, Chris agreed to take a polygraph test, which he failed. Confronted with the results, Chris initially claimed that after he told Shanaan he wanted to separate, she had strangled their daughters in a fit of rage, leading him to kill her in retaliation. This story quickly fell apart, and under further questioning, Chris admitted to the horrifying truth. He confessed to strangling Shanaan in their bedroom during an argument about their relationship. After murdering Shanaan, he loaded her body and their 2 daughters into his truck and drove to an oil field owned by his employer. There, he smothered Bella and Celeste, disposing of their bodies in the oil batteries and burying Shanaan in a shallow grave nearby, leaving behind the bedsheet. Just a few hours later, Shanaan's friend Nicole would call police to report her missing, and Chris's plans to get away with the murder unraveled instantly. Chris was arrested and on August 21, 2018, formally charged. To avoid the death penalty, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to all charges on November 6, 2018. Shanaan's family agreed to the plea deal, not wanting to endure the pain of a lengthy trial. On November 19, 2018, Chris was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. He also received additional years for the unlawful termination of Shanaan's pregnancy and tampering with the bodies. Psychological experts have speculated about Chris Watts' motives, suggesting that he was driven by a desire to start a new life with his mistress, free from the responsibilities of his family. However, no formal psychological diagnosis was made public. Chris's motive has long been speculated that he wanted to start a new life with the woman he had been having an affair with. Her name was Nichol Kessinger. Nicole was Chris's co-worker at Anadarko. Nicole explained to police that she first met Chris in the office, either at the end of May or beginning of June 2018. She said that as a health and safety officer, she worked in the office, while Chris's team would usually be in the office in the mornings before going out to the field to work. She said that she usually put her lunch in the break room, and that's where she first saw him, but she didn't talk to him. He wasn't wearing a wedding ring. One morning, there were some technical faults that she was dealing with, and she spoke to Chris about them. From then on, they would often pass each other in the office, sometimes saying hello and chit-chatting. Eventually, they both realised how much in common they had, and they were both into health and fitness and cars. Eventually, they started chatting every day. Nichol claims that one day around Father's Day, Chris mentioned he had 2 daughters, and Nichol said she thought it was cute. He also told her he had a wife, but they were separating, with him sleeping in the basement of their house. Nichol said that she didn't know his wife's name at first, but analysis of Nichol's phone and internet search records showed that Nichol had searched Shanaan Watts in January 2018, which is at least 5 months before she met Chris. Additionally, she searched the name Chris Watts in August 2017, a full year before the murders took place. But Nichol had only been working for Anadarko for 4 months. This begs the question, did Nichol know of Chris and Shanaan Watts long before she ever met Chris at work? These searches imply that she did. Unfortunately, Nichol was never investigated thoroughly, so we do not know why these searches occurred. But why were police checking her searches for 2017? The search warrant was only for records between June and August 2018. It was speculated that the 2017 search was a typo, however the district attorney confirmed that it was not. But Verizon, her phone provider, was not authorized to provide for records beyond the June to August 2018 date range, so it's not clear if this 2017 search is accurate. Regardless, it's in the discovery, so it cannot be ignored. Chris and Nichol's relationship developed quickly, with Nichol telling police that she was under the impression Chris and Shanaan were going to get divorced. She said that she would never have got involved with Chris had she known that this was a lie. According to Nichol, Chris told her that Shanaan was done with the marriage and wanted out. But this was a lie. The truth was that Shanaan loved Chris and was incredibly upset when she felt him distancing himself from her. She never wanted a divorce, and they were not separated. Instead, Chris neglected Shanaan and stopped being intimate with her once he met Nichol. While Nichol has always claimed she thought the couple was separated, some pieces of evidence show otherwise. Police were able to uncover an internet search made by Nichol on July 24, 2018, which said, "Man I'm having an affair with says he'll leave his wife." She also made a search for "marrying your mistress." If Nichol thought Chris and Shanaan were separated, then it would not be an affair and she would not be a mistress. These searches imply that Nichol knew she was having an affair with a married man. Another piece of evidence that may show that Nichol knew Chris was not separated are the emails between her and Chris at the beginning of their affair. These emails, dated June 12th, start with Chris telling Nichol that she is stunning. Nichol replies saying that she wants to build a life similar to what Chris has done with his wife. She said she believes in karma, and out of respect for herself, Chris, and his family, she wants to keep their relationship to a work friendship. This email that Nichol sent shows that she thought Chris had a beautiful life with his wife and kids, and out of respect for them, she did not want to pursue anything further. This implies she knew Chris was married and seemingly happy, not separated. Chris replied to her email, but did not tell Nichol that he and Shanaan were separated. Instead, he simply agreed with her, saying he also believed in karma, and agreed with Nichol's decision to keep their relationship professional. From these initial emails, it seems that Nichol knew Chris was married and not separated. Additionally, during her police interview, when asked if Nichol's friends knew about Chris, Nichol said no, that they didn't need to know he was with 2 women. This statement implies that Chris was cheating and she knew it. So how did the affair escalate? After continuous talking in person and via text, the pair hung out for the first time outside of work at a park near Nichol's home. This park was East Lake No. 3, and they were there for a few hours. Nichol told police that she only had one phone that she used for both work and personal use. Chris, on the other hand, had 2 phones, so she encouraged him to contact her through his personal phone only in order to keep work out of their relationship. Nichol described Chris as an introvert who didn't feel the need to talk to people, but she said he would open up around her and be out of his shell with her. They enjoyed talking to each other, and Nichol said she never saw Chris lose his temper. He was always kind to her. As the affair progressed, they would hang out at Nichol's place almost exclusively. She did not have any roommates, so they were free to do what they wanted in private. On one occasion, Chris brought with him a pack of unopened condoms and a pack that had been used. Nichol asked Chris why one box was only half full, and he said that they were from when he and Shanaan used to have sex, but that they had been sat collecting dust. Nichol was curious and checked the expiration date of those condoms. They expired in late 2022. She then Googled the expected lifespan of condoms and found that it was 5 years, so Chris would have bought them in late 2017. But for Nichol to do that shows that she didn't believe what Chris told her. She was worried that he was still sleeping with Shanaan and lying about it. Though they spent most of their time at Nichol's place, there were 2 occasions when Nichol went to Chris's house. The first time, Chris had spent the night at Nichol's apartment on July 3rd, her birthday. The next day, he woke up to texts from Shanaan, and he told Nichol that he was going to go home for the rest of the day. Shanaan and the girls were in North Carolina at this point. But Nichol wasn't happy about it. She went to his house, unable to leave him alone. She said she went there to help him set up his MyFitnessPal app, and Chris made a lunch of grilled chicken and carrots. But while in the house, Nichol said she felt uncomfortable because it was someone else's space and someone else's life. She noticed the expensive furniture and possessions in the house and knew that the married couple must have been spending above their means. The second time she went to Chris's house was on July 14th. They had been out for the day at a car museum in Boulder and stopped off at Chris's house afterwards before going to get dinner. Nichol said she saw a picture of Shanaan and the children, and she thought that Chris was giving up a beautiful life. She told police that she was confused why Chris would want to give it all up. She said that Chris told her that he and Shanaan's relationship was over and there was nothing to fix. But Chris had said that Nichol was upset. He told her that before he met Nichol, that he and Shanaan had been trying to have another baby. He didn't tell her that Shanaan was pregnant, but this news enraged Nichol, who stormed out of the house. She sat in her vehicle for 30 minutes texting Chris, possibly hoping he would come out of the house to comfort her, but he didn't. Chris said he tried to calm her down, reiterating that he and Shanaan weren't working, and they were trying for a baby before he met Nichol. Once calm again, Nichol went back inside the house, and then they went to her place. Nichol told him that she wanted to be the first one to give him a son, something he really wanted. After this, Chris said he felt more sure about Nichol, because it seemed she was in it for the long haul.
So the second time I went to that house, I'm not sure what day it was, but it was the weekend of the 14th.
Of August?
July. I don't know if it was the 14th or the 15th. One of those 2 days. But we had went out and we stopped there just real quick on the way back. And we were there not very long. But that time I saw a picture of his wife and one of his kids. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, she's so beautiful. And I took a step back and I was just like, this man has a gorgeous house. He has beautiful babies. He has a beautiful wife. He has an awesome job. Why would he want to leave this? And I remember talking to him about it, and that was the first time that I tried to actually say, what do you think about not separating from your wife? What if you really try to work on this? And he had expressed to me that we've tried to work on this, and it's not working, so that is why we're separating. And I spent some time, because it almost made me feel bad, where I was, to the point where I'm engaging in a relationship with a man who, the way he described it, is in a contractual agreement, but was not in, an emotional relationship with somebody. And for me, the way I would have preferred to do this is to have waited till that contractual agreement was also done, and he was done, and he could have approached me and said, I'm just had a divorce, maybe we could take this slow, what do you think? But instead it was, oh, we're separated and we're working on a divorce, and that is the part out, because I should have waited on that, and I didn't. And, you know, I was just like, well, they're already there. So, you know, but then being in that house, I was just like, why? Fix this. Find a way to fix this. Make it work, you know? And I was like trying to push him to do it, and he seemed pretty reluctant to do it. He didn't want to. And, I don't know, we were still seeing each other fairly frequently, but I kind of like backed away so we weren't hanging out quite as much, and we were still close, but it was just like I really wanted him to try. Like, I wanted to know that he tried and it didn't work, and then he moved on, not that, you know, they both kind of tried and then he got himself into a situation with somebody else. And I don't know, I just thought he had a beautiful life going on, and he could have made it work. That was the way I looked at it from the outside.
So, is this something you reflected on since this event, or was this you?
No, I was doing it then. Like, you
said, this doesn't look right. He's kind of, I don't want to be responsible for breaking up a marriage, especially with 2 children. Is that kind of the gist I'm getting here?
I didn't think it didn't look right. I mean, I think he was legitimately sleeping in the basement, and I didn't think that these 2 were. I mean, I think it was like, hey, we're both stuck in this house for now. We got to sell this. In the meantime, you live here, I live here. We sleep in different rooms, take care of the kids. That's just like kind of how I took that. And no, I didn't think it didn't look right. I just thought it just seemed like he had so much going on, and it was just beautiful that I was like, why don't you just try this out, you know, and see if you can fix it. And he'd always be like, well, what about us? What about us? I'm like, don't worry about us. Like, that is more important. Like, try to see if you can, like, salvage whatever it is that you have going on with your wife. And
during her police interview, Nichol said that she had felt bad about not waiting to have a relationship with Chris until he had got a divorce. She said she didn't want to be responsible for breaking up a marriage, so she tried to encourage Chris to fix things with Shanaan. But then Chris asked, what about us? And Nichol told him, don't worry about us, worry about your wife and family. She encouraged him to read articles about how divorce affects children, and told Chris to read up on it and be mindful of how a divorce could impact his kids. Nichol told police that she was getting cold feet at this point, and was doing everything she could to take a step back, and encouraged Chris to save his marriage. She said she got cold feet because after going from Chris's house, she saw how wonderful his life was, and she wanted to do the right thing and encourage him to fix his marriage. During this time, in July 2018, Shanaan and their daughters Bella and Cece were visiting family in North Carolina. They had been there a few weeks at this point, and Chris flew out to spend time with them on the last week of July. According to Nichol, Chris told her that he was going to North Carolina to see if he could patch things up with Shanaan on her request and rekindle the flame. After all, Nichol was encouraging him to do just that. But if Nichol is being truthful here, and Chris did tell her this, that he was going to patch things up with Shanaan, then he was lying. At no point did Shanaan think the marriage was over. In Shanaan's eyes, there was no flame to be rekindled. She was in love with her husband and wanted him. If Nichol is telling the truth, then this is clearly a manipulation tactic by Chris. Nichol was encouraging him to fix his marriage and was taking a step back. So he told her that he would try one last time to fix things with Shanaan, knowing full well that it was he who wanted to end the marriage. Then when he came back from North Carolina, he could tell Nichol that he tried, but Shanaan didn't want to continue the marriage. This would reassure Nichol that she wasn't ruining a marriage. But if Nichol is lying to police about this, and Chris never said these things, then it's safe to assume that Nichol knew Shanaan did not want to separate from Chris, and she knew that she was having an affair with him. After all, while he was in North Carolina, supposedly fixing his marriage at her insistence, she was sending him multiple nude pictures of herself. So which was it? Was she encouraging Chris to fix his marriage, and he was manipulating Nichol? Or did Nichol know that Chris was not going there to fix his marriage? Perhaps she knew that Chris was actually going there for another, more nefarious reason, which we'll get to later. We know that Shanaan didn't want to separate because she texted her friends about the marriage while she was in North Carolina. In these texts dated August 8th, Shanaan said that Chris told her they're not compatible anymore and that she has been crying herself to sleep for over a week. Shanaan is clearly confused about what's changed between them, saying that she and Chris couldn't get enough of each other before she left for North Carolina. Of course, during that time, we know he started an affair with Nichol. Shanaan suspects that he'd met someone else, telling her friend, "Only thing I can think of, even though I don't think he has it in him, is another girl." Chris, Shanaan, and the two girls arrived back in Frederick, Colorado from North Carolina during the second week of August. According to Nichol, Chris said that Shanaan was done, she didn't want to fix the marriage, and that they were going to get a divorce. He also told her that they were going to put the house up for sale immediately. Nichol, wanting to help Chris, immediately sprung into action, searching for houses and apartments for him. She asked him where he wanted to be, what type of accommodation he wanted, how many rooms. She also asked him about custody arrangements. She said that with a new work schedule about to be enacted, Chris would be working longer hours and more days in a row. She wanted to know when his kids would be staying with him and suggested that she see him for a few days during his week off without the kids. According to Nichol, she didn't want to meet Bella and Cece yet. She said that it was too soon, and if in a year or so they were still together and it seemed like a long-term relationship, then yes, she would love to meet them. But she thought since they had only been seeing each other for a few weeks, that meeting his children was too soon, and apparently Chris never asked her to meet them either. He also didn't ask Nichol to move in with him. Nichol said she wouldn't have even if he did. She liked her space and didn't even want to see Chris every day. She thought that Chris needed time to be on his own, and jumping into a relationship with him was too fast. She thought he needed to develop his own identity again outside of a relationship. Nichol does a good job of convincing police that she wasn't serious about Chris, that they were keeping things casual, taking it slow. But she told Chris that she wanted to give him his first son, and became upset when she thought Chris had already been there and done that. She thought they wouldn't have any firsts together, and expressed this to Chris. Chris said that he had to talk her down from a ledge because she was upset about this. And this conversation happened approximately 1 month after she started talking to Chris, so this is not the behaviour of someone taking things slow. Additionally, on August 4th, Nichol spent 2 hours searching online for wedding dresses. Clearly, she was far more serious about him than she led police to believe. Nichol also told police that she was always supportive of Chris being a dad and encouraged him to spend his free time with his girls. But in these text messages with her friend Charlotte Nelson, Nichol tells her friend, "Feel like every dude I meet has kids these days, and if they don't, they have commitment issues or some BS like Sean. He's all about his kids. I just feel like I will always be second place, like he's been there, done that." It appears from these messages that Nichol feels she will always be second best, and she doesn't like that idea. It contradicts what she tells police in her interview, when she says that she cut one of their dates short and told Chris, "Go spend time with your kids." She told police that she encouraged Chris to see his kids when they were awake and home. But her comment, "Go spend time with your kids," comes off as passive-aggressive. It's almost as if she wants to appear to be a good person, telling him to spend time with his kids, but secretly she wants him to choose her instead. These text messages allude to her real feelings that she feels second best. So far, we have reason to believe that Nichol knew Chris was not separated and that they were having an affair. That she wanted to give him a son, meaning the relationship was more serious to her than she claimed, and that she felt second best to Chris's children. Let's continue. When Shanaan was murdered, she was 15 weeks pregnant with a boy that she and Chris were going to name Nico. Chris had always wanted a boy, and Shanaan was excited. Nichol claimed that she did not know that Shanaan was pregnant. She told police she only found out about this after the murders, when it was on the news. But is this really true? She googled the expiration date of condoms to catch Chris in a lie, so it seems within character that she would investigate Shanaan, and there is evidence that she did. Nichol had searched Shanaan's name twice during the 2-month affair with Chris, once on August 4th and once on August 11th, 2018. The data report says she searched for Chris and Shanaan's Facebook profiles. Shanaan was very active on Facebook. She posted frequently about her life, about Chris and her family. She made many posts about her pregnancy. On June 11th, Shanaan posted to Facebook this video revealing her pregnancy to Chris. On June 19th, Shanaan posted this screenshot of a text between her and Chris showing a picture of her ultrasound. The next day, she mentions in a post that she is in her first trimester and feeling great. In this post, she shows a picture of a panini and captions it with "just what baby Watts ordered." In this post, dated July 3rd, Shanaan said that she was 9.5 weeks pregnant. On August 3rd, Shanaan posted pictures of the family at Myrtle Beach. Chris is in some of the pictures and they look like a happy family. He and Shanaan don't look like a couple headed for a divorce. Even though we know Chris wanted out, if Shanaan did as well, it's unlikely they would be posing for a photo together. It's entirely possible that Nichol saw these posts on Shanaan's Facebook, but it's not conclusive. We don't know exactly what content was available publicly for her to see, though a lot of Shanaan's posts were public, since she used it for work. If Nichol did view these posts, she would have known that Shanaan was pregnant and known that she was happy with Chris. On the weekend of July 28th and 29th, Chris and Nichol were camping and visited the sand dunes. Chris allegedly said that this was the beginning of the end for him. This was when he was firm in his choice that he wanted a life with Nichol, and his family had to go. He knew at this point he was going to kill them. Let's fast forward now to the weekend of the murders, where things look even worse for Nichol. Chris, Shanaan and the girls arrived home from North Carolina in early August. Shanaan posts on Facebook on August 8th saying she had unpacked, cleaned, opened her mail and did it all while 4 months pregnant. On August 9th, Shanaan posts a picture that Chris took on his phone and sent to her. It's of a doll covered with a white sheet representing a dead body. If one of the daughters placed the doll in this position, then it's eerie, foreshadowing what's to come. If Chris placed the doll in this position, perhaps he was sending Shanaan a sick message, showing her his plan. After the North Carolina trip, Chris planned to find an apartment with Nichol's help, while Shanaan was completely unaware. On August 9th, Shanaan flew to Arizona on a work trip. On Saturday, August 11th, Chris arrived at Nichol's home around 5 p.m. He's organised a babysitter so they can go out, but he has to be back by 10 p.m. because the babysitter is 17 and isn't allowed to stay out later. Chris and Nichol go to the Lazy Dog, a restaurant and bar, but they're health nuts and don't like the look of the menu, so they leave and go to another Lazy Dog location where they have food more to their liking. According to Nichol, they spent an hour and a half here having dinner. During her police interview, the detective asked Nichol what she and Chris talked about during that dinner. Nichol does not really answer the question. She doesn't say, "we talked about X." Instead, she starts to talk about how Chris has been losing weight and she looked at his MyFitnessPal app to check his macros. She said she spent quite a bit of time doing this, but it seems unlikely they only talked about Chris's diet for an hour and a half. Unfortunately, the detective does not circle back. He doesn't ask, "what else did you talk about?" Instead, he says, "so your conversation's mainly health-related," which is a leading question. A leading question is when the answer is in the question itself, so the suspect only needs to deny or confirm. Nichol replies, "yeah." Then the detective moves along to the next thing, which is disappointing. There could have been much more that was discussed. Shanaan received a charge alert on her phone for the Lazy Dog dinner. Her and Chris had a joint credit card, so it notified her of the charge. But how did Chris spend $60, she thought? She discussed the finding with her friend and thought Chris must be cheating on her. There was no way his dinner and drink cost $60. He had to have been there with someone else. After dinner, Chris and Nichol go back to her place for a bit, and then Chris leaves to go home. He stops to get cash to pay the babysitter on his way. On Sunday, August 12th, Chris takes the kids to a birthday party. Nichol can't recall much of her day, but thinks she stayed at home. She tells the police she did not see Chris that day. However, between 9 and 11 p.m., Chris and Nichol have a 111-minute phone call, but Nichol said she couldn't remember what they talked about. She did say that she thought she heard the TV on, which she thought was weird because it was getting late, and Chris usually spoke to her from the basement where there was no TV. She remembered that Chris told her he wouldn't see her in the office the next morning because he had to go to one of the Anadarko sites to fix a valve. Nichol told police this wasn't unusual, as operators sometimes went to the field first thing instead of the office. The writer, Sherlyn Cadle, says that Chris told her during this 111-minute phone call that he and Nichol had phone sex. But many people believe that during this phone call, Nichol was aware of Chris's plans to murder his family. By his own admission, Chris had been thinking about it for weeks. With the intention of going straight to the field in the morning, he already knew what he was going to do. He knew that night that he would dump his wife and daughter's bodies out there. But did Nichol also know? There is speculation that Nichol gave Chris an ultimatum, that she told him he had to choose between her or his family. But there's no concrete evidence of this, other than Chris mentioned this to Sherlyn Cadle in her book. Shanaan was due to come home that Sunday night, but her flight was delayed. She ended up arriving home at 1:48 a.m. on the morning of Monday, August 13th. Chris said he smothered the children before Shanaan got home, but after he strangled his wife, the kids woke up somehow. His attempted murder of them failed. According to Chris, he and Shanaan had sex and an emotional conversation, after which he strangled Shanaan. It's unlikely they had sex considering Chris had rejected Shanaan's bids for sex for weeks at this point. Perhaps he was trying to make himself look less of a jerk, that everything was fine until their emotional conversation, which also probably didn't happen. She didn't fight back, and he guessed she might have been saying a prayer, but this is also unlikely. If you're being strangled, you're fighting for your life, not laying still praying. He ended up putting Shanaan's body and the kids who were awake in his truck and driving them out to the oil field, where he killed the girls by smothering them with a blanket, dumped them in the oil batteries, and buried Shanaan's body in a shallow grave. He put the girls in the batteries, 1, so there was no chance of the murder failing again, and 2, to keep them apart from Shanaan as a punishment to her. But where was Nichol during this time? Weirdly, Nichol and Chris did not speak on the morning of Monday the 13th, despite having spoken almost every morning prior. But Nichol told police that sometimes that happens because they get busy. But some people believe that this security footage of Chris Watts' house shows the silhouette of a person who is not Chris leaving Chris's house before he backs his truck into the garage. The enhanced footage appears to show someone carrying what looks like a white purse, possibly the same white purse as seen with Nichol in her police interview. Was Nichol at Chris's house that night? Or is this person actually Chris? The supposed white purse could just be Chris's hand illuminated under the bright light. We cannot see anyone on the footage leaving the house before this person, so it is assumed that this person leaving the house is Chris. However, the lights to his truck turn on before this person leaves the house. So was Chris inside the truck already, and then Nichol followed him out? Chris's truck did not have a remote start, but the truck did have a feature called illuminated entry, meaning that when the truck is unlocked, the lights come on. This would mean that Chris unlocked the truck via the button on his fob, the lights turned on, then Chris is seen walking out of the house. But the fact is, the neighbor's security camera had to have been activated by movement. The camera was activated. We see the start of the footage, then we see a person walk out of the house. But what was the movement that activated the camera in the first place? Was it Chris coming out of the house? Did he go back inside and then come out again once the camera was recording? Or was it something else that activated the camera? But there is one piece of evidence linking Nichol to Chris's house that morning that cannot be denied. At 6:16 a.m., Nichol's phone pinged a cell tower in Frederick, where Chris's house was located. Nichol lived 25 minutes away from Chris's house. Look at this map and see just how far away Frederick is from Thornton, where Nichol lived. It's pretty far. Her phone had never pinged that Frederick tower on her way to work before either. The phone had pinged Frederick on other occasion that we can see in her phone records beginning July 14th. That ping happened at 10:24 a.m. on July 14th, the day that Nichol said she and Chris went to a museum and then stopped at his house afterwards. The call was to Chris's phone and lasted 1 minute, so it's likely that she called him when she arrived to pick him up in the morning. Nichol's phone only pinged the Frederick Tower 4 times between July 14th and August 13th. The first was on July 14th, when we know that Nichol went to Chris's house after they went to the Shelby Mustang Museum. The second and third time was on July 18th. Nichol never said she went to Chris's house that day, but could she possibly have driven by on her way home from work? The 2 pings happened with a 6-minute gap between them, so she's likely stuck around for a few minutes rather than just driving past. She couldn't have spent the night at Chris's house that night because by 5:30 p.m. she's back home and her phone is pinging Thornton once again. The 4th time the phone pings Frederick is during the 6:16 a.m. call on the morning of the murders. Looking at the rest of the phone pings, on her way to and from work her phone pinged several other towers, but never Frederick. So surely this indicates that Nichol was at or nearby Chris's house the morning of the 13th. Of course, we have the pings on July 18th that don't make sense, but it's still possible she went to go check out his house that day. Additionally, a neighbour told police that she saw a grey truck parked on the street that morning of the murders.
Okay. Anything different over the last, 2 days, 3 days? Odd vehicles, odd noises, odd lights?
There was a truck out here yesterday. In fact, that's why I thought you were here yesterday. Maybe someone complained about that I hadn't seen before.
What type of truck?
It was kind of almost a steel gray.
Okay.
Don't ask me, make
Okay.
year. But that was late afternoon. The dad has a great big truck, and it's gray. But this one was smaller.
Okay.
This one was smaller.
Then,
But I hadn't seen it before, so
any markings or stickers or anything that would be weird? You wouldn't by a chance remember if the plate was green or red or...
No, I kind of just I don't
glanced
pay
at
any
it.
attention because I believe he owns his own business or something because he always has a truck parked there, so kind of,
I gotcha.
I just kind of noticed it wasn't the normal truck.
Was it dirty by any means?
No, it wasn't, and it couldn't have been that old.
Okay. How long was the truck sitting there?
I saw it yesterday morning around 5:15 a.m. because I go to the gym then.
Okay.
It was still there when I got back at 6:45, and then it was there around, I think, noontime. Now I saw his truck leave yesterday, maybe it was this morning. I was leaving for the gym. His truck had the lights on, which is unusual for that morning, 5:15 in the morning. Only fools like me are up.
So you don't usually see him leave at that time of day? That was that the gray truck, or what truck was that?
That was his regular truck. It's a pretty big truck. Maybe, what could I compare it to? An F-250, 350, the big ones, yeah.
And that steel truck, is that like a pickup or a...
Pickup.
Pickup truck?
Yeah.
Is that a camper or anything? A camper shell or anything on the back of it? Would you say it's bigger than that truck?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Although Nichol drove a Toyota 4Runner, her father Dwayne owned a Dodge Dakota, which was grey. And if you'll notice in that interview, the police asked the neighbour if it had a camper shell on the back. Now, Dwayne's Dakota had a camper shell on the back, so it's likely that the police already knew what Nichol's father's truck looked like and were asking the neighbours if they saw it. Nichol was also not active on her phone that morning, despite being incredibly active, calling people almost every hour in the days and weeks leading up to the murder. Exceptions are the 6th, 7th and 8th of August, where Nichol didn't use her phone until the afternoon. We can see here on her phone records the number of calls between her and Chris in the early mornings. Chris's number is highlighted in blue, the yellow highlight is Nichol's friend Jim. We can see the 6:16 a.m. call to Jim that originated in Frederick, where Chris lived. That morning after the murders, Chris looked up the lyrics to Metallica's song Battery at 10:10 a.m. Some of the lyrics read, "Smashing through the boundaries, lunacy has found me, cannot stop the battery, pounding out aggression, turns into obsession, cannot kill the battery, cannot kill the family, battery is found in me." But this song has nothing to do with killing your family. The song is about Battery Street in San Francisco, where Metallica played many of their early shows. The family refers to the community of metalheads and bands who frequented the Battery Street clubs. But would Chris have known the true meaning of this song, or simply thought that it was about being a raging lunatic? After his incarceration, he said that Nichol asked him to look up the lyrics to this song. But there is no text or phone call from Nichol to Chris that morning on the 13th. They didn't speak until the afternoon, so this appears to be an attempt of Chris to blame shift once again. Nichol clocked into work on the 13th, though it's not clear exactly what time she did that, and she left around 3 p.m. She arrived home about 3:45 p.m, where she found her friend Jim waiting for her in her apartment. Jim was a family friend who had known Nichol for years, and she gave him a key to her place and knew that he would be visiting her that day. Not long after arriving home, she said that she saw a text from Chris telling her that his family were gone. Nichol told police she didn't understand this vague message. Gone where, she thought? The grocery store? Chris asked Nichol to call him, which she thought was strange since it sounded urgent, but maybe he just wanted to see her, she thought. After chatting with Jim for a bit, Nichol called Chris, who didn't answer right away. But eventually, he told her that Shanaan and the girls were missing, and that the cops were at his house. He told her that Shanaan's purse and phone was still there, and Nichol told police she thought maybe Shanaan was in a rush to leave. Maybe she left her phone because she didn't want Chris to call her. Maybe she just wanted space. Nichol told police that murder never crossed her mind at this point. She did not think of that as a possibility as to what happened to Shanaan. Nichol suggested Chris move his truck so that if Shanaan did come home, she'd be more likely to enter the house if she thought he wasn't there. She also suggested he have a friend with him and record Shanaan, just in case they have a confrontation. Chris told Nichol that Shanaan had left her wedding ring in the house, and he asked Nichol, "How much do you think it's worth?" According to Nichol, she thought that was a really odd question, and she said to him, "I don't know, man, pawn it." Chris said it's a nice rock, so he wanted to get it appraised. While suggesting to pawn Shanaan's ring while she was only still missing at that point is a little sus, Nichol's reaction could have just been from frustration that Chris was asking her about his wife's ring. As his mistress, she likely didn't want to be asked about such things. But later that night, Nichol and Chris had several short back-and-forth phone calls that do look suspicious. This was unusual for them. At 5:01 p.m, Nichol made 3 unanswered calls to Chris and then deleted them from her call log. At 5:30 p.m, Chris made an unanswered call to Nichol. This was also deleted. At 9:48 p.m, Chris called Nichol and it lasted for 50 minutes. At 11:09 p.m, Nichol called Chris and they talked for another 52 minutes. She deleted this from her phone log as well. At 12:02 a.m, Nichol searched Google for Shanaan Watts. At 1:12 a.m, they spoke for another 2 minutes and 44 seconds. At 1:50 a.m, they spoke for 7 minutes. And then at 1:58 a.m, Chris called the Frederick Police Department and has some back and forth calls with them, but there is dead air. It sounds like someone is trying to connect, but can't. At 2:07 a.m, Chris called Nichol, but she doesn't answer. She calls him back immediately on his personal phone, and then stays on the phone for 10 minutes. But at the same time, Chris called the police again from his work phone, meaning that Nichol could have been listening in to their call if Chris put the detective on speaker. Nichol's reasoning for these back-and-forth phone calls was that she was freaking out that night and worried about where his family was. She said she couldn't sleep, and Chris kept calling her to reassure her. Hours later, the next afternoon at 12:08 p.m, Nichol searched Google for Chris Watts and news about Shanaan. She then made the following searches. She searched, "Can cops trace text messages? How long do phone companies keep text messages? difference between text message content and text message detail. Can you get printouts of text messages? At some point, Nichol deleted all of her text messages between her and Chris. Why was she so concerned if cops could trace text messages? What was she hiding? And what did she and Chris talk about for 1 hour and 42 minutes the night of the murders? On August 15th, the police were informed, possibly from someone who worked at Anadarko, that Chris was having an affair with Nichol. Nichol got tipped off about this, but it's unclear exactly how. She then contacted the FBI and came forward, confirming that she was seeing Chris. Her father accompanied her to her police interview on August 16th. This was her second interview, the first was not recorded. During this second interview, she told the police that she deleted all of her text messages with Chris because she was hurt that he lied to her. She said she wanted to cut him out of her life, so she deleted all of his stuff. One point during the interview, Nichol began to cry, saying that she couldn't believe he could do this, that his girls were so little, and she called Chris disgusting. Nichol claimed that she did not know Shanaan was pregnant, and if she had known, she never would have got involved with Chris. She was upset that he had lied to her. But if her reasoning for deleting these texts was innocent, why make those Google searches? If Nichol knew about Chris's plan to murder Shanaan and his kids, perhaps that is why she and Chris had back and forth phone calls on the night of the murders. Was Chris trying to add her to a three-way call and didn't work, so she called his cell and listened as Chris put the detective on speaker. Perhaps she wanted to hear what the police knew. If Nichol is an innocent bystander, why was she and Chris playing phone tag during the time that Chris was talking to the police on the phone? Why did she delete her texts, and why did she search the internet about cops tracing texts? None of this looks good for Nichol. On August 19th, Nichol searched the internet on topics related to Amber Fry, who was the mistress of Scott Peterson, a man who murdered his pregnant wife. Her searches included Fry's book deal, her net worth, and the question, did people hate Amber Fry? While this could point to Nichol wanting to make some money out of her affair with Chris, the circumstances are slightly different. Amber Fry did not know that Scott Peterson was married. As soon as he came clean to her that he was married and that his wife was missing, she came forward to the police and recorded her subsequent conversations with Scott. Amber Fry was an innocent party in this case, but we cannot be certain that Nichol Kessinger was an innocent party. There is also another piece of evidence that points to Nichol's involvement. Chris admitted that when Shanaan was in North Carolina, he tried to make her miscarry by giving her Oxycodone. Remember, Nichol told Chris that she wanted to give him his first son. Perhaps upon hearing this, Chris wanted Shanaan to lose their baby boy. He had never said how he got a hold of the Oxy, saying he would take that to his grave, so it begs the question, did Nichol get it for him? Allegedly, Nichol spoke with the clinic and inquired about safe doses of oxycodone for pregnant women and how much of a dose would cause a miscarriage. Did Chris go to North Carolina not to patch things up with Shanaan like Nichol claimed, but instead to poison her with oxycodone and make her miscarry? Was Nichol fully aware of this plan? If this is true, then it means Nichol did in fact know Shanaan was pregnant. And if she knew Shanaan was pregnant, then she did not delete her text messages with Chris because she was upset he lied to her about the pregnancy. She must have deleted them for other reasons. So what was Chris Watts' motive for killing his family? It's speculated that Nichol pushed Chris into choosing her. Perhaps she encouraged him to spend time with his family, not because she was a good person, but because she was hoping that he would choose to spend time with her instead. If she pushed him away and he came back, that would prove to her that she was worthy, that she came first. It could have been a test, whether she was conscious of this or not. She could have wanted Chris to think he was making all of the decisions himself, but in reality, she was controlling him. Some people speculate that Nichol was into dark magic and put a spell on Chris. This opinion comes from Nichol's alleged affiliation with the Ordo Templis Orientis, an organization established by occultist Aleister Crowley. He said, "The order offers esoteric instruction through dramatic ritual, guidance in a system of illuminated ethics, and fellowship among aspirants to the great work of realizing the divine in the human." But there is no concrete proof that Nichol was involved in this cult, other than her admitting to calling her spiritual advisor on the day of the murders, and this advisor has been linked to that cult. Chris pleaded guilty, so there wasn't a thorough investigation into Nichol, and we will never know for sure her full role in this case. But Chris has allegedly spoken out in recent months and appears to put some blame on Nichol. Shalyn Cadle wrote a book in 2020 called Letters from Christopher. This book is her account of the murders based on her supposed extensive research. She corresponded with Chris in order to write it, giving him the opportunity to tell the truth about what happened and to speak about things he had not told authorities. But we cannot know for sure that what he wrote to Cadle in his letters actually happened. He did not receive compensation for his participation. In the book, Cadle writes that Chris told her he felt evil spirits around him in the weeks leading up to the murders. He said when he was strangling Shanaan, it felt like something was standing behind him, making him do it. Was it Nichol? He said that had Shanaan not gone to North Carolina, he probably would not have met up with Nichol at the park, never gone out with her, never started the affair. But the pair had already begun flirting before Shanaan left, so we can't take Chris's word for this. However, with Shanaan being gone, it did offer plenty of opportunities for Chris to meet up with Nichol. When Chris found out about the pregnancy, he was caught off guard because mentally he was with Nichol and he didn't think Shanaan would get pregnant so quickly. While Nichol told police that she liked her space and wasn't that serious about Chris, he said that she pursued him, sending him naked pictures of herself, which he kept hidden in a special app on his phone. But according to the book, Letters from Christopher, there's more to his and Nichole's relationship that we'll never know. Cadle writes, "Christopher says really bad things went on in Nikki's house, things he is very ashamed of. Some of the things Christopher says he will take to the grave with him." What could these bad things be? Were there conversations about plans to kill Chris's family? Or was it something darker, something related to that cult? Chris had sent many letters while in prison. Some of these have been to women throwing themselves at him, but others have been to a friend, a fellow prison inmate, Dylan Tallman, who was in the cell next to Chris for a year. Dylan wrote a book about his friendship with Chris titled The Cell Next Door, and in it he writes that Chris said Nichol was an evil spirit. Chris apparently said, "I was having an affair with this girl and I ended up in love with two women at the same time. It's what led up to what happened. She is of evil spirits, like Jezebel." Jezebel is a biblical reference to a woman who misleads servants into sexual immorality. Dylan wrote in the book, he admitted that he was stupid to cheat on his wife, and he asked God's forgiveness every day for his infidelity. In one letter dated March 2020, Watts wrote a prayer of confession. He said, "The words of a harlot have brought me low. Her flattering speech was like drops of honey that pierced my heart and soul. Little did I know that all her guests were in the chamber of death." "How did I let this happen?" he continued. "The blessings you have bestowed upon me were right in front of me, and still I followed the perfume of a strange woman." According to Dylan Tallman, Chris said that Nichol gave him an ultimatum on the night of the murders. She told him he needed to choose between her and his family, and Chris chose her. From these writings, it appears that Chris is blaming Nichol for tempting him, flattering him, and her evil spirit led him to do what he did. But the fact remains that Chris made his own choices. Nichol didn't put a gun to his head and force him to murder his wife and children, at least that we know of. He chose to do that, and it's entirely possible that Nichol did not know Chris would murder his family. However, if Nichol was complicit in the crimes, helped Chris plan, or was aware he would do it, then she needs to be held accountable. What do you think about Nichol Kessinger? Do you think she lied to police and knew more than she admitted? Do you think she was actually involved in the planning of the murders? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to Hell is Empty.